Welcome, everybody. My name is Rob Entz. This is the third annual Utah Elder Abuse Awareness Day. We appreciate the attendance today and for your interest and participation and the guest speakers who will be presenting important messages to us. You'll have introductory messages from the governor, as well as Nubia Pena, and those will play shortly. A couple of things just for business. The governor will acknowledge who our sponsoring partners are, and we want to thank them for the time and the effort in planning this, headed up by Tracy Lee from the Division of Aging Adult Services. Now a message from our governor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 Utah Elder Abuse Awareness Day Conference. We want a state where all Utahns can age and live safely. Aging can expose older adults to mistreatment, including abuse, neglect, and exploitation. In 2022 alone, Adult Protective Services investigated more than 4,000 cases involving allegations of vulnerable adults being mistreated. While financial exploitation is the #1 allegation investigated in Utah, cases of elder mistreatment are frequently complex, involving multiple types of allegations. It takes a combined knowledge, tools, and strategies from many sectors, such as social services, law, medicine, psychology, finance, and law enforcement, to address the complexities of elder mistreatment and advance effective solutions. Together, we can develop multi-level interventions and support to prevent and address mistreatment. Your participation in today's conference puts you on the path to help prevent elder abuse. I'm grateful for your dedication to protecting Utah's vulnerable adults. Thank you to Utah's Health and Human Services Division of Aging and Adult Services, AARP Utah, the Utah Commission on Aging, the Alzheimer's Association, Utah Chapter, Senior Blue Book, Utah 211, and Utah's Association of Area Agencies on Aging for hosting today and recognize the importance of taking action to raise awareness to prevent and address elder abuse every day. I also extend a heartfelt thank you to frontline workers. I'm grateful to our dedicated Adult Protective Services team, law enforcement, healthcare providers, senior and disability services staff, and caregivers, all of whom play vital roles in recognizing and preventing abuse in our communities. Thank you for your dedication to protecting Utah's vulnerable adults, and enjoy your day of learning. Let's work together to prevent elder abuse.
We want to thank the governor for his message and also for the declaration that you saw in the waiting room. Our next presenter message is from Nubia Pena, who is the Senior Advisor on Equity and Opportunity to Governor Cox and the Director of the Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs, where their mission is to promote an inclusive climate for Utah's growing diverse community through the training, policy, research efforts, and outreach, and investment initiatives and youth leadership development.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nubia Pena, and I'm the Senior Advisor of Equity and Opportunity to Governor Spencer Cox and the Director for the Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs, where our mission is to promote an inclusive and welcoming community for everyone. I'm deeply sorry that I was unable to join you live, but I am grateful that through the gift of technology, I have the opportunity and pleasure to be with you through this video message. I want to begin by thanking the incredible conference planners for their efforts in creating a dynamic agenda where throughout the day you will be able to learn about best practices and resources that are available to you, your clients, your constituents, and organizations to prevent, intervene, and respond to elder abuse. I feel privileged to join you on behalf of the Cox Henderson team to thank you for attending today's event to discuss a critical issue that will require all of us to respond effectively. Elder abuse is sadly and unfortunately a serious problem in the U.S., and it is incredibly common. Abuse, including neglect and exploitation, is experienced by about 1 in 10 people age 60 and older who live at home, and according to the CDC, many older adults require care and are vulnerable to violence perpetrated by caregivers or someone that they trust. But we also know that the risk of harm is higher for people who often lack digital access or literacy, or they may not speak the language, or they may live with a disability or are isolated from a larger network of people that could help. That is why it is critical for us to develop our programs and our initiatives for preventing elder abuse through the lens of inclusion, which empowers us to ask if our efforts will truly reach the most vulnerable and the most in need. These past several years, and in particular during the pandemic, they taught us how important it is for us to be inclusive in our strategies so that people are not left behind. We have a responsibility to identify the gaps in our programs to better serve and increase engagement with our aging population so that every older adult in our state can age with dignity and with respect, regardless of zip codes, race, physical and cognitive disability or ability, or gender. So I am grateful that today you will learn the best practices and the resources that will help us reach more people and respond more effectively if harm occurs. But above all, I'm thankful that you joined so that we can collectively commit to preventing elder abuse in Utah. So on behalf of our administration, I want to express immense appreciation to the caretakers, the guardians, the frontline advocates, the first responders, and every person that is doing their part to help our senior community thrive. This work is complex, but through a coordinated and collaborative approach between all of us, our administration hopes to help set a course where all people who call Utah home, including our elderly and our older adults, feel included in the priorities and integrated in the vision of a Utah where no violence and exploitation exist for our loved ones. And we believe that we will achieve this by working alongside great partners like yourself. So thank you again for doing your part in responding, disrupting, intervening, and preventing elder abuse in Utah. And thank you for doing this work with compassion and deep empathy. I hope that you enjoy your conference.
Great messages to start the day. And welcome to those who just recently joined us. Our next two presenters are going to tag team this dynamic duo. First, we have Douglas Crapo, who is the director of the Utah Attorney General's Office White Collar Commercial Enforcement Division. He and his team work at enforcing many laws that protect the public as they represent their clients and colleagues in the Division of Consumer Protection, the Division of Securities, Professional Licensing, and Real Estate. Doug recently helped conclude major litigation where the state partnered with the FTC to stop a deceptive nationwide real estate coaching scheme that defrauded hundreds of millions from consumers. He and his co-presenter, Katie Hart, who is the director of the Division of Consumer Protection, work daily to make the consumers of Utah safer. Katie was appointed to the Director of Consumer Protection Division in October 2022. Katie obtained her BA in Economics and Political Science from the University of Vermont, and then earned a law degree from the J. Reuben Clark Law School in Provo, Utah, graduating cum laude. She began her legal career as an associate at Deckert LLP. Katie's career passion is developing practical policy for and defending the rights of the consumer at large. Doug and Katie, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Douglas Crapo. Thanks for the introduction, Rob. And you were right. It was a great couple of videos to start the conference off. I'm honored to be here. I'm flattered to get the invitation to present. Again, I'm the Director of White Collar Commercial Enforcement for the Attorney General's Office here in Utah. And we see, like everyone in our society, we see this concern for the vulnerable elderly in our economy. And Katie and I are on the front lines of how to fix that and make our elderly more safe in our modern economy. And I want to do two things. One is do a review on why it's important and why it is hard to protect the elderly in our economy. And then two, I will turn to things that the good work that we are doing in the Attorney General's office, both within my division and one of my colleagues in the Medicaid fraud and patient abuse division, and what they've done in recent years as far as prosecutions and enforcing the laws and protecting elderly in not only in our economy, but in the healthcare sector as well. So first, let me just walk through why it is so important to protect elderly in our economy and why that's going to become a larger challenge as we move forward. I'm going to go back in time, give me just a little bit of like a armchair historian thought process of why it's important to maintain the trust with our elderly in our economy. I'm going to go back to Babylon. This is 1800 years before Christ. And up till this point, our societies, human societies, maxed out at a population of about 100 people. And the king at the time, Hammurabi, established a 282 rule code book. That's the first establishment of the rule of law in human history. And in that rule of law, he established, this is one of the rules that he established. If you steal someone's cow, you will get punished with, you'll have to either pay the value of 10 cows or you lose your head, you die. There's a penalty to it. And that seems so easy now to think that there's, if you do X, you will get Y. But this was groundbreaking. Not only is it just to protect the person that lost the cow, but it's to put a penalty on the person that stole the cow or killed the cow. And the effect of it is large. Within 100 years, you go from a population group with human cooperation, a society of 100 plus, like around 100. Within 100 years, the max population is 1 million people together. So humans have been able to work together more once they establish that trust. Once they trust that they can either lend their cow to somebody else and they know they'll get it back, or they can leave their cow, go do something else in the economy, and come back and know that their most valuable resource is still going to be there at the end. This trust foundation, this moment of trust is instrumental to our economy. And you go 1800 years before Christ to, let's just take it to the 20 years ago, to the turn of the millennium. Let's look at how many moments of trusts we have established in our economy. And instead of thinking of cows and that kind of a simple economic transaction, let's run through a simple transaction around the year 2000. Let's say I'm going to go buy a compact disc at Crossroads Mall, back when it existed. There's still a lot of moments in trust in all of our economy. I'd have to go get my car that I trust is safe. I have to drive on roads that I trust are safe. I have to drive through intersections that I trust red lights and green lights are honored by other people on the road, sides of the road. When I get to Crossroads Mall, I trust that the building is safe. I trust that the parking structure isn't going to fall on my car. I trust that there's security there. I trust when I go in and buy my CD that the oversized box wrapped in cellophane has a smaller box in it with a CD in it that's going to actually play my Spice Girls when I put it in my boombox. All of those things are trust. They're established on trust. It's the bedrock of our economy. I trust that the cotton that I pull out of my wallet that is in the form of $1 or a $20 bill will be honored by the cashier at the store. And that cashier trusts the same. If I were to pull out the diner's card or a Diners Club card and they do one of those carbon copy checks or the electronic swipe, there's a lot of trust going on there that they won't take my money, that the cashier isn't going to take my credit card number and go buy Bob Marley posters in the head shop next to me. And it's kind of a fun thought experiment to think of how often we're trusting each other. And notice the government's in there. There's an enforcer in there almost at every turn. That the roads are safe, that the building has a strong structure, that the intersections are, no one's speeding on the road. There's everything from cops to architects to many licensing issues and enforcement to make sure that the financial markets of the credit card companies work through there. So the government's there in a lot of those transactions. And yet the free market's there as well, making sure it's running efficiently. That's the invisible hand. That's an interesting, looking at the cow economic model and looking at 20 years ago is one thing. Now, let's just go another 20 years to today and look at what it's like when you get online. And and my point is, although it was a lot of work or a lot of trust to go buy a compact disc at the mall, When I go to Amazon or eBay, there's going to be even more trust. I have to go to a website that I trust no one's watching me on, or like not many people are watching me on. I go to the browser and trust that when I type in the name of the vendor that I want, the marketplace that I want to go to, be it Amazon, be it eBay, whatever the vendor, that I actually get to the right one. It's not Amazon or it's not eBoy. I trust that when I go to the search engine and type in, let's say, earbuds or whatever product I'm looking for, that vendor isn't just sending me the ones that they get the most money on, that they're not getting kickbacks on every one of those transactions. I trust that when I look at the reviews, that they're written by, they're bona fide reviews, that they're actual people like me that have purchased something similar and giving an honest assessment of what the product is. I'm trusting it's not their competitor giving a false negative report. I trust when I submit my credit card that it's probably, my credit card number is probably saved in the in my browser history. I trust that that's right. When I say ship to me, I trust that it's going to be shipped to me maybe by the end of the day, but within 72 hours, someone's going to drop it on my doorstep. They're not going to steal anything as they're walking away, and no one's going to come and steal what's on my doorstep. It's you take 20 years ago, and it's amazing how much more trust we have in all of these little interactions. Let's look at a couple of more economic interactions. Taxis. 20 years ago, every car had a medallion on it. It was painted in a conspicuous color, yellow, orange, red. We knew what it was going to cost. Those are heavily negotiated with the government. It was fixed fees, no matter what time of day it was. Today, every car looks just like my car that I drove to work in. They might have a little sign in it, but that's, I think, a choice of the driver, no one else's. And it's Uber and it's Lyft, these new company names we didn't know about 20 years ago. The economy is changing a lot. Look at hotels. You go on vacation, you don't stay at the Hilton or Holiday Inn. More and more people are staying at Airbnbs. We're trusting that we're going and living in people's homes like we didn't before. We're riding with strangers. When you talk about like Havarati's old laws, here's an old law that we just know: don't ride with strangers. We're breaking it every day, and we're only relying on like customer reviews and the idea that Uber drivers are safe. And the same with Airbnb. Now, why is that important for elder law? Why is that important for the vulnerable people that are older in our society? And then this is it. And there's a study in 2015 that the older humans get, the more they trust people. And that sounds okay. So the economy is just relying on more and more trust. And in fact, that's the bedrock of the economy. We would not be a cooperating society without it. And as we get older, we trust and trust more. Both of those things are leading up. And you can see that what if the trust is false? What if the person dropping off my earbuds at my doorstep actually decides that they want to interact or steal something? Or what if somebody logs onto the browser and they're not sophisticated and go to the wrong vendor and they take their credit card and they empty their financial accounts? That's a real risk. Like, as Governor Cox pointed out, there is a ton of financial fraud, especially for the elderly in Utah and the United States. And as the economy is advancing quickly, older people aren't going to have the same old rules to guide them because the world's changing. Riding with strangers is safe now, or we now trust it more than we used to. That's why it's an interesting moment. And that's what makes me charged when I start my days, is that we go out there, Katie and I work to make our economy a true interaction of trusting moments. And it's by enforcing these laws. It's the people that steal cows, we need to make sure that they're giving the value of 10 cows back. And for my colleague, Kaylee Wooten, she gets to actually do more criminal work. So she might be able to say, I'm going to take your liberty for a little bit and hold you in a holding cell for what you did and taking away from other people. That's the exciting work we get to do. It's not only in consumer protection, and I represent the division of real estate. I represent the division of securities, where elderly people will invest in what they think are the newest, hottest businesses, and they turn out to be Ponzi schemes. The Attorney General's office and our attorneys help take it to the finish line and make sure those people feel the consequences of their bad acts on our vulnerable members of society. Here's an example of what we're doing right now in the Department of Licensing. It's attorneys for with the Attorney General representing the Department of Professional Licensing in an enforcement action where nurses and a medical clinic had set up in Utah and sold the idea for neuropathy that an elderly couple needed to undergo their medical treatment in order to save their legs. And then the sales script that they had developed that we are presenting to a judge later next week required that they bring in both of their partners. So you bring in your loved one and you sit next to them, and then the nurse and the salesperson sit there and grill them about, are you willing to not be able to walk because you're going to lose your feet? Unless you charge your credit card to $20,000 to $40,000 today to do this program where we'll do a blood draw, go in the other room and add magic dust to it. I mean, those are my words, but there was a process that they were going to do that was supposedly going to save their feet. It was all a fraud, as the allegations are. And of course, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty, or we meet our preponderance standard in front of in a civil action. But I will say that we're not resting, and literally I can hear the work in the other wall behind me of us getting ready for that trial. And we're excited to stop it. I can proudly say we've stopped it right now in the state of Utah, and we're moving forward to make sure that they can't practice anywhere else in the United States. I want to turn quickly now and run through what my colleague in the Medicaid Fraud and Patient Abuse Division has been able to do in the last couple of years. Share my screen. And this is, like I thought, is it switching for you guys right now? Tracy?
It's not, it's just on your first screen.
Okay. Okay.
There we go.
Thank you. And so the Medicaid and Patient Abuse Division, they protect vulnerable people from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And they protect the Medicaid program itself. They make sure that it's funded by looking at how it's billed and making sure that they don't run pill mills and et cetera. This program is funded by federal law, and originally at one point it was primarily, or it had a strong focus on opioid diversion, which is important. In 2021, it expanded to look at not just inpatient facilities like in hospitals or assisted living centers, but even if people are getting treatment at home. This is what you'd look for signs of abuse and neglect: bruises, welts, cuts, broken bones, over and undercarried medication, social isolation, which is one of the saddest things for me. Withdrawn, passive, fearful, unusually low self-confidence, lack of basic hygiene. As someone whose father died during the opioid pandemic with Alzheimer's, all of these things are sad realities at times, even for like in the natural setting. I fortunately my father was in a place where he was able to get good care, but you can imagine it going the opposite direction really quickly. Money, looking for financial exploitation in this space, money being taken out of accounts, lack of amenities and comforts, people inexplicably running out of money, and sudden changes in financial accounts. Kind of basic stuff, but things not bad to have on a checklist if you are on the front lines in this space. Look for intimidation, ignoring bullying, and threatening. I love this, threatening a placement in a facility. It's I don't love it. I hate it. Also looking at these are some recent prosecutions that Katie's team has done. There's a certified nurse certificate, took a video of an adult, was on a toilet, and a mucus thing dangling from her nostril. Thought that was funny, decided to post it on her social media account. Fortunately, she did a plea in abeyance and had some consequences to it, but it's not how we want to be treating our loved ones. State v. Jones, a financial exploitation. The son was using the father's money to open a restaurant while the father went without. Interestingly, the statutes were changed. Well, they made the argument that what does it matter? The son was going to get the inheritance anyways. Why does it matter if he burns it up before his dad dies or not? And which is an alarming argument, so that you should send your parents to die in destitution while you burn up their inheritance, like before they even die. There's a disinheritance law now, and this was part of the impetus on it. State McBride, the victim was blind, and the victim relied on an in-home health aide, and the health aide used the money to steal out of the ATM. 60 days in jail, full restitution on the fines, which is great, but disturbing that it can happen. State v. Matthews, horrific death. Memory care resident left the facility and froze to death. And maybe the least responsible move I can imagine, the administrator said, let's put the body in bed and say that they died in sleep. It resulted in probation fines in the community center. Another, this is alarming. Fortunately, a granny cam found a caretaker physically punching and elbowing a patient. Okay, some recent updates in statutes. The isolation means preventing a vulnerable adult from communicating, visiting, and interacting with others. That's a third-degree felony if it has the proper mens rea on it. And causing personal dignity exploitation, causing the vulnerable adult to participate in an act that's highly offensive, creates or displays images of recordings. This is shocking stuff, but shows like the unclothed parts of a body or even clothed parts of the body when it's, used to what a reasonable person wouldn't consent to. And I think of like the dangling mucus. So providers are on the front lines have a unique role in this space. They closely involved with the patients and vulnerable adults. They can see the warning signs. They can observe significant changes. They can really help find and stop this quickly. And here's how you report the problems to escalate. If you see abuse or neglect, don't forget 911. If you see someone physically assaulting someone, call the authorities. There's adult protective services. You can, and these are available. If we can trust Google to give us the right addresses, you can type these in, put in Utah, and find these contact information. You can also call the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. That's my colleague, Haleen Wooten's office, and can help on this as well. And for fraud, here's some other resources: the Utah Office of an Inspector General, the Utah State Office for Victims of Crime, and then also the Medicaid Control Fraud Unit. If you're there and you're seeing it, go ahead and gather up some evidence. Let's preserve it. Let's build the case. You can help us. You can take photos, you can take videos, gather family information. Finding out where people are and how they can be contacted is huge. The suspected abusers information, get their license plate, see where they go. Notice are they 5 feet tall or are they 6 feet tall? Gather that information and protect it. Legal paperwork, if someone has a power of attorney, get copies of it, take screenshots of your phone, and any other specific concerns, and ask anyone else that may have witnessed it. Get their contact too. All of these things would help. So On this last slide, I put on the left the contact information for my colleague, the division director for Medicaid fraud and patient abuse. She gave me much of this content that I've shared here. She takes the lion's share of this work, and then my contacts on the other side. And with that, I'll pass it over to Katie. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for your care in this space. And I'm proud to call all of you my colleagues. Thanks.
So my name is Katie Hart. As Douglas mentioned, Douglas and I get to work together quite frequently. I'm the Director of Consumer Protection for the state of Utah, and I'm really honored and privileged to have the opportunity to serve the community in this capacity. I'm very passionate about consumer protection and consumer protection issues, particularly as it relates to the elderly community. I have a slide presentation, but I just want to start by reiterating what Douglas shared. So much of what we do as a society is based and founded on trust. Our mission statement here at the division is strengthening trust in Utah's commercial activities through impartial enforcement and education. And so today I want to talk a little bit about how we do that. And like Douglas, I have a slide presentation, although I do not have the robust history lesson that I actually thoroughly enjoyed and was a great reminder of what we need to do. So let me share, if I can do this correctly, my presentation. Did that come up for all of you?
Yes, you're good, Katie.
Okay, great. And did this screen just click?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So first, the best advice that we have, we talk a lot at the Consumer Protection Division when we're doing our education and outreach about being a wise consumer. And this is just an acronym to help people remember some steps that they can take to protect themselves when they are engaging in the economy. So we like to talk about watching for red flags. People, and again, I don't do the criminal side. My heart goes out to the people who do. Those stories that Douglas just shared were appalling. But what we do here is more your financial frauds and scams. As Douglas mentioned earlier, we had a huge case recently about a real estate business opportunity scam that we teamed up with the FTC and had a great result there. But a lot of our victims in that were members of the elderly community who wanted to find some ways to earn passive incomes. So again, watch for red flags. There we're talking about offers that are too good to be true, high pressure sales pitches, people give complicated answers to simple questions that you may ask about what you're signing on for. We encourage people to investigate and research, do their homework. There's lots of resources out there. Google is a good way to start, but you can also come to our website. We have things like buyer beware lists. You can do legal action searches for companies that we've already taken action against. And you can also verify registrations. So for example, where Douglas was just talking about healthcare professionals and licensed individuals practicing in the nursing profession, construction, all of that at the Department of Commerce, you can look up to verify that somebody has a license to do what they are engaging in. We encourage people to set boundaries. These are great conversations to have with the elderly community about what are appropriate amounts of money for them to be spending on things. Oftentimes when someone comes to their door, whether it's for a charity or a business or a door-to-door sales opportunity, they make impulse decisions in that moment. And so it's really great to have those conversations up front about what is their budget for maybe charitable giving, what are the things that they need to purchase over the next couple months, and whether or not they have the money to do the extra things. And then just encouraging them and reminding them that they should walk away from high pressure sales pitches and possibly look at only buying from trusted retailers or websites that they're familiar with, such as Amazon, as Douglas was just mentioning. And then finally, we talk about examining the fine print. Lots of times, particularly in stores now and in door-to-door sales, you'll see contracts that are on an iPad that consumers are not getting a copy of. They're just scrolling down and signing, and they're not really reading the terms and conditions, and they're trusting that what the salesperson has told them is true. And so we really want people to take a minute to understand what they're signing up for, to make sure they understand refund policies and what other ongoing obligations that can come, such as renewable contracts. So these are our kind of our standard for all types of situations. It's just reminding our communities to be wise consumers. Go to my next slide. So a little bit about the division, a little background. The Division of Consumer Protection enforces a lot of statutes. Our biggest statute is the Consumer Sales Practices Act, and this is what many states will refer to as an Unfair and Deceptive Practices Act. This is where really you get at the heart of, I bought a product, I thought this product was going to do X, it doesn't do X. The sales guy told me it was going to do this, it doesn't, and I've been misled in some sort of way. I have personal stories about this. I think we can all relate to these types of stories where we maybe signed up for something that we shouldn't have, or my example, which I will not go into great lengths today, was buying sunglasses that I thought were designer sunglasses on Facebook that turned out to be not only not designer sunglasses, but were not even the sunglasses that I ordered. And after a lengthy month debate with somebody who I believe was overseas in an Asian country, I did not get a refund or anything back on those sunglasses. I keep them as a reminder to myself that everybody can be subject to a scam, including myself, even as I sit in this chair right now as the director of this division. Scam artists are really good. They're con artists, I learned the other day, because they're confidence artists. They are really good at what they do, and they build up your confidence and your trust in them when you purchase. I think for the elderly community, and I'm just going to pause here for a minute and digress, one of the hardest things that we face is the shame that comes with what has happened to them. And there's a reticence on their part to report when they have fallen prey to a scam, particularly if it's a financial scam, and they don't want to tell their children that it happened to them because they're worried that their children won't trust them anymore to take care of themselves. And so we at the division spend a lot of time talking about how to approach our victims and how to make it a safe space for them to share about their experience. And that's really important to us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But recognizing that getting them to even share the story is half the battle sometimes. But it helps us to talk about some of our own personal experiences when talking to them, so that everybody understands that this is this can happen to everybody. Okay, I'm going to turn now to the next. In the last year, we had 6 more statutes that came our way. And so our division is constantly growing. But the general idea on most of the statutes that come our way is there's some sort of deceptive hook to all of them. And in certain spaces, you just see a higher prevalence of deception. Okay, a little bit background on our complaint process. We really encourage people, even if they're not sure that they have a complaint, to come on our website at dcp.utah.gov and file a complaint. We also have people who answer the phones every day and take complaints over the phone, particularly for some of our elderly. I know that they don't like getting online. And so we welcome phone calls as well. A consumer files a complaint and we receive it. We screen every single complaint that comes in. They don't go to a random box that nobody looks at. Every single complaint that comes in, we take the time to read and understand. And then we make a determination about whether or not that case should be opened. And if it should, we assign it to an investigator, but we always report back to the consumer. If we feel like it's not something that is within our jurisdiction, we help them go to the place that they need to be. And then if you'll note there, we'll refer to external agencies. For example, if it's a security Ponzi scheme, they sit right across the hall from us. We make sure to walk those over and have a conversation with the securities team about the complaint that we're looking at. Once it's assigned to an investigator, the investigator will take time to talk to the complainant and also then reach out to whatever business is involved, if possible, to learn more about what happened. If we can come to a resolution between the consumer and the business without taking an administrative action, then that is our preference. However, oftentimes we have to go the administrative route, particularly if somebody's done complaints against a lot of people. Some elderly people might say, what's the point? It was a small dollar amount. I don't want to go through the hassle. We're only as good at this division as the information that we have. And so even if we're not going to be able to get redress for a consumer, we hope that they'll report a crime to us because it's or a fraud, because it is the only way that we can alert the public about possible scams. After we've had a case, we'll do one of a couple things. We'll close it if it's doesn't have sufficient evidence. We'll close it because we've had that conversation with the business and we've come to a resolution. We can take an administrative action, which allows us to cite individuals. Those administrative actions that we've taken are public record, and you can find them online at our website. So if you're curious about a business and whether or not they've ever had a run-in with our agency, you can search for those. And then our bigger situations, like the case that Douglas just referenced with the FTC versus Nudge, we will go to court. And in that case, we can hopefully get consumer redress for the victims as well. So you might be wondering, what are the top complaints that we see? We have a travel and vacation that's kind of run the top of our list. And this is just a spillover, we think a leftover from COVID. There were a lot of trips that were canceled, cruises in particular, that got delayed. And so we received a lot of complaints about that. Typically at the very top of our list is the home remodel. And home remodel can be anything from fixing driveways, interior work, putting in a pool, those types of things where a contractor shows up. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding about the type of work they're going to do. But oftentimes when we get involved, it's because the contractor showed up, took the money, maybe started a little bit of the work and never came back. We have a lot of auto parts and repairs complaints. That's when you take your car in, and oftentimes they tell you that this is the work that is going to be done. Maybe they call you over the phone, maybe they don't, but they do some extra work on your car that you didn't know and understand. I know this is something that I'm susceptible to, and I think a lot of elderly people are today. Cars have become more and more modernized, and it's really difficult. The other one I want to flag for you on this list, for elderly people who are still living on their own, that I think is of particular importance right now, is solar. Solar salesmen go door to door. They often represent a lot of, here we go. So we have received over 50 complaints already this calendar year regarding solar. We're seeing a spike in solar sales. These salespeople are really good. They go door to door. They're very charming and convincing, but oftentimes they make sometimes, not all solar companies are bad, but oftentimes they make representations about the amount of savings that a homeowner might see and the rebates the homeowner might be able to get when they install solar. What they don't often explain is how the loans work with solar, that they stay with the individual and not with the home, for example, and that it can take a lot of time to build up that savings, and that's assuming that they're installed correctly and hooked up to the power source in the correct way. And so we're really encouraging consumers, particularly homeowners, to watch and really understand what they're agreeing to when they engage or when they commit to solar contracts. Okay, and I just actually got ahead of myself. So they also overpromise the speed of installation, and they can often misrepresent that they're with a utility company, a government agency, or a grant program. Some notable things when it comes to age, younger adults, seniors report fraud actually less frequently than younger adults. And you'll notice though that when you get to older ages, the amount of loss is actually higher than younger people. And these are median numbers, not average numbers. So keep that in mind. They fall prey to business imposter scams, investment scams, romance scams are a big one amongst the elderly. Government imposters, so that's images you might see floating around the internet that look like it's a state agency or a government agency. IRS, I got a text yesterday telling me that I had an IRS refund ready for me. That these things are, there's important to note. And that also it's because seniors pick up the phone oftentimes that they fall prey to scams and websites and apps. Typically, seniors are not falling prey to social media scams. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about imposter scams. We see this often. It's somebody who says that they're a family member, friend, government agency, a business that you know already, the name that sounds familiar to you. And they will present a scenario that's false, a lie, and it's usually over the phone or a text or an email. And we gave you some examples right there to be aware of. One of the latest trends is a gift card scam, where they impersonate your boss, maybe through email, saying, hey, can you go purchase these gift cards, scratch off the backs and reply to this email and let me know what they are, because I'm going to use them for some purpose. And then they just run off with the gift cards. So beware of the imposter over the phone. They might say that they're law enforcement. And one of the biggest ones that we're hearing about lately, although I haven't had a report to me, I have people in the federal agencies who've told me about this, is AI scams where it sounds like a grandson or a granddaughter. They'll call the elderly person, they'll say, hey, I'm in jail. I'm in a lot of trouble. I don't want mom and dad to know. Please don't tell them. I can't really talk, but I need you to wire me this money immediately, or bad things are going to happen to me, or I'm not going to be able to get out. Or that there's some sort of medical emergency that they need money for. And it sounds real to these individuals. And so we just want to alert everybody that unfortunately, this is the kind of situation where, like when I drop my child off at school, maybe I want to have a safety word with them so that if someone's going to pick me up from school, that somebody different's going to pick them up from school, they know the safety word. It might be time that we start talking to adults about safety words as well, so that they know it's really a family member on the other end of the line when they get that call. These are like examples of texts that I see, and I think a lot of elderly people see, and they reply and give away a lot of information in the replies. And so it's just a great reminder, don't click on numbers that you're not sure of. Don't call them. Don't reply to these texts. If you don't recognize where it's coming from, it's probably a scam. Better to be safe than sorry. And really importantly, don't follow links. Some important things for the elderly to remember, and for you all when educating them: government agencies will never threaten you over the phone. It's important to just slow down. I think one of the things that I've noticed most about living in Utah, I'm originally from the East Coast, but I've been here for a long time in various times in my life. People here are extremely nice, and they have a really hard time saying no. And so it is giving people permission. If there's one thing I could just ingrain in everybody, is that it's not rude to say no. It is okay to say not right now. It is okay to have boundaries. And so I really just encourage people to practice ahead of time that scenario, that the door-to-door salesman's there, somebody's coming about a charity, somebody's calling you on the phone and you answer and you're like, oh, dang, I thought this number looked familiar, but it's really not a familiar number. And it's okay just to hang up the phone. It's okay to just say not right now. It's okay to ask for their contact information and let them know that you'll contact them back if you're interested. But really, no is a very powerful and very important word that people need to practice saying more. Here's some contact information for us. You can file a complaint or to call us if you have an issue. There's also, if you have identity theft or you think they've been a victim of identity theft, the website for that is identitytheft.gov, and then the elder fraud hotline as well. You can also report frauds to the Federal Trade Commission. I encourage people oftentimes when they report to us to report to the FTC as well. They have a broader view. And some of these companies, particularly as we were talking about solar and these business opportunity companies, are nationwide. And so gathering all that information is important. Professional licensing, securities, you can verify whether somebody's a registered security. And that is really it for my presentation. I just want to applaud you all for what you do as well. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about what we do at the division. So I just want to thank you all, and thank you for excusing my lack of tech savvy when it comes to Zoom calls. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have about whether what we do or however I can help. I would love to answer questions.
So if there are any questions, if folks could put them in the chat for either Doug or for Katie. And thank you both, by the way, for a wonderful presentation. Doug, did you have a comment?
Can I, sorry, were you waiting for someone to have a comment, or were you motioning to me, Rob?
I noticed that you were about to say something.
So I wanted to, as I was talking about the case that we had coming up, I realized that I had overstated one of the amounts of money that was asked, like when I was talking about the neuropathy case. And I want to just reiterate, these are allegations. We're presenting the case in the coming week, but 40,000 was too high of a number. Our highest amount was 27,000. I think it's still I was mixing two case numbers together, and during Katie's presentation, I double checked my numbers on it. But I also just want to say that we're excited to bring the case forward, and we're bringing it based on the evidence. And I just didn't want to overstate things. I think there's a question for you, Katie.
Okay, do you want to read it to me? Because I'm still struggling with my screen right now.
Are you available to do community education for older adults?
Absolutely. We love that. Patrick's on the line right now. He coordinates all of our outreach. And so I'm happy to present as well. We welcome opportunities to come and speak about, and if there are specific topics you want us to cover, we're happy to do that. And Patrick just posted his contact information. If you'd like to reach out, we're happy to set something up for sure.
Well, I'll iterate. Thanks for everything that everyone on this call is doing. Being here is an act in this space, and it's helpful for us to know that there's other people out there working alongside us. So, Katie, do you have any handouts to give to older adults?
We do, and we can work on getting those to anybody who would like them. I think we're in the middle of a little bit of a branding and relogoing moment, so we might be delayed, but we do have handouts, yeah, or they're coming.
We want to make sure that your most current information and resources are also pointed to from the UtahAging.org website under the consumer and fraud protection stuff. So we might want to collaborate on that to make sure that we're getting the latest and most important information forwarded for both of your offices.
Yeah, and we work together, and so we might be able to do some joint things with that as well, so that it's not confusing to people. The one thing I worry about is that people get confused about where to report and then they don't report at all.
Right.
So there's no wrong door in the state of Utah. The governor's been really clear about that. We're one Utah. So the best thing to do is pick up the phone and figure out, and wherever you start, we'll make sure you get to the right place.
And I think we all have the common goal is if we can educate and educate and educate, we can keep people from falling in the river here. It's a lot tougher to fish them out, right?
Yep, that's exactly.
So, all right. Any final questions? Again, Doug and Katie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Likewise.
Our next presenter is Kevin Luke. Kevin is a special agent who has investigated white-collar crime and public corruption for 14 years with assignments in the Phoenix, Sacramento, and Salt Lake City divisions. Special Agent Luke serves as a member of the FBI SWAT team. And so, Kevin, you are on, and let's get you up on.
Yes. And Tracy, real quick, did you see that email I sent you about the supplement that might be good for for Rob to share?
I did. I'm just going to upload it to the shared drive right now so Rob can see it when you're ready for it.
Awesome. Well, great. Yeah, I'll just get started then. Again, my name is Kevin Luke. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm an agent here in the Salt Lake Division. Been doing this about 14 years. Luckily, and also for my education and wheelhouse, I've done specifically white collar crime, done some public corruption, some cyber, but generally speaking, white collar crime. So I'm just going to go through a few things, a few slides, and then there's a supplement that I just sent to Tracy that I think it would be good to share with you guys. And I checked to make sure it was something I could share with the public, just to give a different flavor from Katie's recent presentation. A lot of our stuff is the same, and so I don't want to waste your time. But Rob, if you'll just kind of push through the slides, I'll go through real quickly without boring you by PowerPoint, give you some examples and some general things. Again, just what I'm going to talk about today real quick. Feel free to ask questions throughout, and I'll try to stop and address those, or if Tracy can help me with those, if there's something that is worth something we can address as we go through. So next, Rob, if yeah, so just real quick, and maybe some of you know friends or family members that are in the FBI. This is what the FBI does, and this is the priority of work. I mean, we are tasked since 9/11 to address any terrorist attacks. HSI does a little bit of that now, but it was mandated since 9/11 for us to handle this. As you can see on this slide deck there, that where it fits in, if you hit next, Rob, it'll pop up where we fit. Combat significant white collar crime. It's towards the bottom of the priorities because it still gets its volume and resources put towards it because it's so prevalent in the United States, but oftentimes it does not have to do with life and limb or national security. So we both target public corruption and white collar crime. Elder fraud fits within that white collar crime. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So next, Rob. Really just economic crimes and money laundering and how this affects right here. The next slide is, I'll just jump right into it. Everyone's seen this. The elderly are very susceptible to this. And this is where my plug will be for what we usually do as agents. We do the SWAT stuff, we do the warrants, the arresting, but when it comes to the elderly, we also put on a different hat, and oftentimes we are counselors, as Katie shared, I believe, and Doug. We talk to people who have done simple things like clicked on an email they shouldn't have because it looked similar. These are international actors that have taken an email address maybe from a family member or from a company or from their financial advisor, and they've changed a letter or two, or they've created some sort of urgency. And within that clickbait, you'll often find the romance scams or employment scams or too good to be true scams. They're prevalent. I'll get into a few examples. But essentially, it's preying upon vulnerabilities, and that kind of counselor therapist role that we play, that we're in the homes of many elderly people, and we are primarily criminal investigators. And in our arena, it's often international actors, where there's little that can be done after the fact. There's a tremendous amount of shame, embarrassment, isolation, and confusion. And although we're not counselors and therapists, we find ourselves working with them and referring to them to our victim specialists to talk through those matters and resources. So this is kind of the overarching, like just the clickbait business email compromise. It goes for anything that comes through a platform. Next slide, Rob. And really, I just kind of covered this. This is a very heavy slide. The bottom line is they're scammers, and they're there to take something. How do we prevent the elderly from clicking on something, from selecting something? We stay present with them, and I am not completely entirely sure as to the entire audience, but if most of you are medical or some sort of providers of some sort. It's staying present with them, asking them the questions. Who are you talking to? Who have you talked to recently? Are you keeping in close contact with those people that you know in your role that are concerned with and involved in their care, that are staying current and present with not just their, either medications or plans of care, but also who have you been chatting with online recently? It's easier to take care of it before you have to fish them out of the river, as it was mentioned right here before. But talking with them to prevent them from talking to people they shouldn't be. And keep on going, Rob. You can click on all of those. And yeah, just bring them all up. So in this case here, we see it very common. If it's too good to be true, it is. If it defies the law of the harvest, where you're required to work for something and allow a season for it to grow, it's probably not real. If by a simple click and a simple providing of information, it's always going to be unethical at minimum and probably criminal. And so talking with them and how to avoid them is just being present with them. Are you involved in anything? Are if they're elderly and they're retired, are you doing anything, to keep your mind busy in regards to like whatever they did in their past life, like business? Some people like to keep a pulse on markets or with their professional interests of the past. Like again, the prevention is what goes a long way in our arena. So these advanced fee schemes, if the deal is too good to be true, or if it defies anything that we know based upon logic and reason. And now to say that, it kind of implies that the elderly are not logical or reasonable. No, what's preyed upon is the affinity, and those affinities are the good things that make up, frankly, the generational, them of the past and us in the present in the professional world, and that is integrity, trust, reliability, and things like that. And so, again, if it's too good to be true, it's telling them it's too good to be true. So you can go on to the next slide, Rob. Romance scams are the #1 thing we see with the elderly. Again, back to the questions. Who are you talking to? Are you engaged with anyone? Widowers and widows. Recently, another agent, myself, went over to the headquarters for Utah Community Credit Union, and there was a widower, and his wife had died a year previous, and he had raised, and his late wife had raised sound children that had, grandchildren, and were very productive people in the community. And he had engaged online in just a friendship relationship that turned into online romance. And we were there to stop him from sending the last bit of the several hundreds of thousands of dollars overseas to a woman that was not a woman. It was a Google voice, and it was a man in a different country. The last little bit of retirement that he had, he'd already sent all of his retirement to her to get her to come to the US so that he could be with her. Again, it was very sad. It was his choice to send it. He didn't, because we persuaded him not to. But we didn't spend any really time talking about how the money would help his grandkids or even his children. We talked to him about the isolation and loneliness he felt since his wife had died. He was married to for over 40 years, and romance scams prey upon the loneliness and the isolation that elderly people often encounter because for the various factors that you guys know. So romance scams are it. Rob, next slide. That's just really it. There's nobody in another country. You can go ahead and bring all those up, Rob. I'll just say this to the audience. There's nobody in another country that's planning on coming and engaging either romantically or same household or in marriage. They are there to take money. This has been going on a long time, and we, on the federal level, only have a few resources to stop this. And here's Ponzi schemes, similar to advanced fee schemes. The Ponzi schemes locally, if their neighbor, and in the state of Utah, which we see commonly, if there's also a link between the neighborhood and oftentimes the very heavy Latter-day Saint community, which geographically splits in wards and stakes. They know them through that affinity. And so because they know them in that affinity, it's often a no-brainer for them to want to invest some of their money, or as they would look at it, help someone out. We have several cases, and that is not to disparage faith nor this specific faith, but several cases where individuals have taken advantage of the elderly in this scenario because of either their position and or placement in their church. We do have some stats on national level. Thanks for that, Patrick. And we're going to share that national report here as I burn through these slides. A lot of this Katie covered, like I said. So Ponzi schemes, again, too good to be true. Or if it requires layering, or if it requires money up front, or the rate of return is outside what you and I are getting on our best day, it's just not real. It's not real on any day of the week. So Rob, next slide. Right before that, yep, money laundering. The elderly are, it's very prevalent here in Utah, where money laundering is occurring through the hands of the elderly. These actors, both nationally and internationally, they will make contact. Maybe it's not romance, but it is somebody that forms a relationship with them online, either a social chat arena or through an email. And what they will do is ask them, hey, you know, I kind of got hinked up with something. Would you mind going and opening a bank account? And if I sent you a cashier's check, would you put it in there for me? And then would you mind sending it to me? And through a different account, that's being a money mule. A money mule is a launderer of money. Most of the time it's unknowingly. We have a requirement that we have to admonish money mules and request that they voluntarily sign a letter saying, if you continue to do this, that you may be prosecuted by the federal government, because we're trying to stop the international flow of all of this money that's being stolen and laundered. And the money may come from drugs, it may come from other nefarious acts, but I have sat in hundreds of elderly homes where they are either couples or alone, where, you know, we have to have somewhat of a stronger conversation with them. It's not really threatening, but say you are laundering money for this entity or person. And they often think they're just doing an act of service, and it's being a money mule. So again, staying present with them, asking them the questions. Who are you talking to? Outside of their circle of trust, I'm not saying they should, but if they are, it would be worth asking a few follow-up questions. Why are you talking to them? What are you getting out of it? I'm concerned for you. And if it's good and healthy, great. But if it hits some red flags based on your own personal experiences she shared with, like, being duped with sunglasses, if it doesn't pass your smell test, it's probably not going to pass this. It's probably already passed that smell test with the elderly, and they're being duped. So just being vigilant in that. So Rob, next slide. Really, some of these things you've seen have been mentioned: the FTC, the SEC, the FBI, IC3. I'm going to share a report with you from IC3, and it has the national averages. It does cover Utah, but the kill chain, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the kill chain. That's one thing we do have. The kill chain is, if money is sent internationally, the FBI has to be notified immediately. We have 3 days where we have the power to stop that wire transfer of money. And that's what it's called. We have a kill chain team back at headquarters, and any money that is sent internationally, we have 72 hours. After that, unless it's a country where we have one of the MLAT treaties, which we have a lot of treaties with a lot of countries where we can work with them, but it is very difficult. And oftentimes, frankly, the actors, including Russia or some of the Baltic states or China, it goes there. And where we don't have such a good relationship with them, for you guys know why you watch the news, that money is gone, and it leaves families and people devastated for their generational reasons and money, and also the shame and there are oftentimes feel displaced in society because they spend a lot of time alone. This just kind of devastates them. It's really hard to see in our arena. So there was one question that popped up. So if there's a case regarding romance fraud that's overseas, would you refer to the FBI? Absolutely, the FBI. We get called regularly from local departments where we, and I'll stop clicking because I don't know what I'm doing. Recently, I got a call from a local police department that covers Shields and said, can you come down here? There's an elderly man that has been coming down for months and getting cash cards there. For some reason, you can do them at Shields, and I don't know why. Because frankly, I don't remember, but can you come down here and get him to stop doing this? He is sending his money and then loading it onto a card, and then they're pulling it off of a card. And he had sent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we don't have, he's a victim here, but he believes he's sending it to somebody that he's helping and that cares for him. And he's going to do everything he can because of his good nature, but also some limitations to get this person the help they need. And really, they're just taking his money. So reach out to us. The IC3 is super important. And if, Rob, if you can pull that up. So another great question as to friends that have business accounts that were hacked, how can they call? Who can they call? That's the ic3.gov. And that's what I talked about initially with the business email compromise. Business emails are hacked all the time, especially as the AG's office had already mentioned. I don't want to spend too much time on what's already been covered, but in relation to homes, remodels, and also the things relating to real estate, rather. And they will be asked to do something, or there's an urgent message from their home warranty company. And it's really a company they know, where international hackers have spoofed email accounts and sent them to them, and then they end up clicking on it and sending wires internationally. So the IC3 website is the catch-all for all of that. So this is a report here that I can provide. If we can scroll through that, if everyone can see that. If we just go down, this is the 2002 Elder Fraud Report, and this comes from IC3. And if we'll just scroll down and go down to right here, the first slide. In 2022, victims over 60 were 88,000, total losses $3.1 billion. An increase in 84% from the year before. Maybe that has something to do with COVID and the isolation. The average victim is losing about $35,000, and that's where it brings it down to the local levels in the communities in which we live. Is per person $35,000. That's still a lot of money for all of them and each of us. Over 5,400 with over $100,000 in loss. And if we you can just scroll down, and I'll just hit some of these high points. For some reason, mine's really small. I don't know if you want to enlarge that. There we go. You can see the numbers here. Victims over 60 reporting for the past 5 years. So they did a trend analysis, and the volume. And we will cover the Utah losses as we get down. And that's just kind of a 5-year analysis. Rob, if you keep on going. It's coming up different here than on mine. Maybe it did not translate. But the types of crimes here, with these are all victims over 60. Investment, 990 million. Spoofing, somebody had mentioned, that's $22 million. Asking for tech support, 587 million. Business email compromise, asking for the something that they know of a known company with just a slightly changed business email. That's almost $500 million. And you can see through there the different types. If we keep on going down, next page.
Apologize for the presentation. It's the gift of Google Docs.
Yes, sorry about that, guys. I had put this
Well,
in last minute.
We'll get them the original document.
Yep, I can send it out. Yep,
And
I will.
send it to Tracy or me, and we'll
Yeah.
make sure it gets added to folks' portfolio. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Tracy has the original PDF I sent her. And this is just the overall. So if we keep going down, a lot of the stuff is the same. Crimes for, 22, 21, and 20, last 3-year comparison. And you can see the number, 50 million advanced fee schemes, $500 million in business email compromise. So again, the types of frauds, you can see the real estate that the AGs mentioned, $135 million. And keep on going, Rob. This report will be available for everyone. So here we go. 2002 overall statistics, California, number 1, right there. Then Utah, as you can see, California and Utah are the number 1. And then you go to Florida. This is much better format, and I apologize again because this is all color coded and is simpler to read. State statistics rather.
Hey, Kevin, Rob,
Yep.
can you maybe stop sharing and download it and share it from there? Because the PDF will, or I can share. Then the
Yeah,
PDF.
because
will
it's a
show
really good report that
Okay.
people can latch on to and visually get what I'm saying without me. Here we go. 2002. So we're number 30. This is better, not number 2. 2002 overall statistics per state. Victims over 60. Utah is ranked number 30 with 741. California, this might be proportional to population, but this report will be sent to everyone. This is not classified. This is something that can be used by you to reference things. I certainly would not encourage nor suggest that you go and share this content, but you can share it with people, but don't present on this as is an FBI product. So Utah's 741 for 2022. As a white collar agent, just because of the volume, I carry probably 25 to 30 cases, and there's a squad of us. So you think about it, between the AG's office, us, Department of Security's, 741 might not seem like a lot, but that's a lot in addition to everything else we do. So if you keep on going down.
So Kevin, just a quick question.
Yep.
If this were on a per
Right.
capita basis, does that might change the ranking of where Utah is, right?
It may, yes, but they're just looking at per numbers, how it fits. So
Yeah.
if you go to the top right there and see what the title of this is, victims over 60 losses by state. California against number 1. In this case, Arkansas is ranked 30. So if there were 741 victims over 60 in 2022, Utah comes in at 26 at almost, $28 million. So that's a significant amount of money. And you can see where we fit. And there probably is some correlation to that, Rob. And this might generate several questions, but just looking at this for what it is, about $30 million. Keep on going. Again, these are the types of frauds which we covered. The government impersonation is super common. I've been called and told that there's IRS agents outside, they're going to arrest me here in Utah for not paying my taxes. And I'm like, sweet, send them in. Let's get it on. I'm ready. And it's usually just somebody overseas and often with an accent. So you can see the numbers there, how much money, $750 million just in the call center, tech support, government impersonation fraud. Scroll on down for me if you don't mind. Investments, you can see where investments are up. These are the things that I covered that the AG's office also covered. That's a lot of money. Over 60 victims over the past 3 years. That is a tremendous amount of money that's been earned or passed down through generations and is in retirement for the next generation or for their well-being, their medical care. That is a tremendous amount of money. These are all US statistics. And I keep saying it, we do local stuff as well. We work with our local partners, but most of the elder fraud jumps the pond and goes overseas. And I'll highlight, if you scroll down for me, romance scams, you can see that the numbers there as it relates, and just seeing a graph to cover everything that I've been talking about over the past 3 years. Extortion, cryptocurrency. Surprisingly, there's been a number of elderly people that have looked into, maybe just because it's what's, once you click on something and then the algorithm puts it in front of their faces, that are interested in this cryptocurrency and investing in it. But cryptocurrency is a major issue for us, and something we address both on the cyber squad and white collar squad, but the elderly are fascinated with it, maybe like some other groups, and you can see there that it's certainly taken its toll. And here we go. There's this cryptocurrency. You can see the how it relates. And if anybody has any question about cryptocurrency, I can try to explain it, but really it's just another form of valuation that they want to monetize. It's always, as valuable as cryptocurrency is, there's always, the crime has to do with collateralizing it into US currency. So all of the things just carry over. That's really it there. And the last is just resources. But I don't know if you guys saw the news with the attorney that we prosecuted, Calvin Curtis. I don't know if you need to give me a thumbs up. Maybe you didn't. Recently in the news, but Calvin Curtis was an attorney, and this is to bring it back to home. He was an attorney, long. Yes, but give the story. Sweet. I'll give it briefly just because it relates to the elderly community and also those with special needs. Attorney, he gave, well known in the Salt Lake community around Utah for a very long time. Created trusts and essentially escrow accounts for those with special needs, whether they received it from malpractice, an injury, but also elderly that families had set up for the care of the elderly throughout, the latter decades of their life. And he was known for that. He gave continuing education all through the state on this, and essentially he was taking the money. He stole tens of millions of dollars, and he pled guilty. We ended up negotiating something which the judge rejected and said that I will not take anything less than a 10-year negotiation. So he got sentenced to over 10 years in federal prison. But it can happen with those even in the positions of trust, those next door, those doing the work that we all need to do to protect them. But there's a fine line, and that, when we're all sheepdogs here to protect those that are vulnerable, protect the integrity of our society, frankly, through the things that matter most, like trust, respect, and our word. And I say that not altruistically or esoterically, but those are the things that the fraudsters prey on. They don't bring the bank account and say, let me tell you how this money would be better sitting in my account than your account. They come in and they talk about the things that matter at the people's core, and then they pray, and then they take from them, and then we're here to clean up. But these types of conferences are great, and your work is noble because, and I say that genuinely, humbly, because if we can prevent it, that is what we need to do. So that elder abuse report, we put one out every year. It's through IC3. The website, again, if you want to write it down, ic3.gov. We collect that data and we report it, and we also use it to also create cases, open cases rather. We don't create cases, open cases. So if there's any questions, I don't know if I machine gun this, but I wanted to go through it. I didn't want to hit the things that were already hit. The biggest thing, again, for all of us is ask the tough, caring questions. How are you? Who are you talking to? Is there anybody that you've brought into your circle recently that's either helping you or not? And if they have, it's worth a follow-up conversation, because it's all not negative, but this is in the, as you saw, $100 billion in over the last X amount of years. And I know that's a national thing, but that is a lot of money. And money doesn't matter, but it's something that we have to care about, because it's what puts the day-to-day, functioning of our lives in play. So with that, I'm not sure, Tracy, if there's anything else you want me to cover.
Kevin, we do have a couple questions.
Yes, what might make Utah elderly individuals specifically more vulnerable to scams, fraud, Ponzi schemes? The affinity. So and again, this is not something that is only with the faith base that's in Utah. I have worked in other divisions where there are large communities of faith, or something that is essentially affinity's third party something. We're going to talk about something else so that I can prey upon you about this. It's passive targeting. In this case, it's the faith-based structure of Utah. And in this case, it's heavily Latter-day Saint. And so that is what is the primary thing that we see. But if you go to Arizona, where there are large mega churches, where I worked for 6 years, it was that. But its affinity is based upon attributes and values, and hobbies. It could be woodworking. It could be the loss of a spouse in elderly circumstances, and it could be just general faith things of somebody wanting to provide service for somebody that's in need. I was just helping them out. They said they needed to get out of jail in the Caribbean, and so I've sent them money, but they said they can't get out of jail until they pay their taxes, and they can't pay their taxes until they pay the person. And so they're so far deep into this, oftentimes they don't even know how much money they've sent, because the need for them to care, and their want for caring, and their need to fill the loneliness gap is so great. And that's not disparaging. It's just how it is in this arena that we play in and work very hard in and see. And so whatever you can find a large concentration of something in whatever region of the country, that's going to usually be the affinity that they're preying upon. I don't know if that makes sense, or that was a little too wordy, but if there's other questions that I missed, or
One from Troy about romance scams.
We got
Yeah.
two more before that. Hold on just a sec. Some of our elders are sending large amounts of cash out of the country. I assume there is no way to track this.
Yeah, we can track it. We can know where it goes. We can't do much about it unless we can do the kill chain. Even if it's a country that we're friendly with and have a treaty with, most of the time money can't be sent back. We're not that sophisticated as a planet yet, or a country, or other countries. I will say that we just seized $750 million worth of cryptocurrency from another country. So it's possible. It's very, very difficult. It's not, that doesn't steer us away because we don't want to do hard work. It's just very, very complicated. So if you find out within 72 hours, just call the FBI and say, my client just sent money, please help, SOS. We have a department full-time that just does kill chains, that will stop the wire, no questions asked, immediately. We just did this for an individual. He's not elderly, but we just did this for an individual who his builder said, hey, I'm switching banks. Can you send money here? It's for the next draw. He sent $300,000. We stopped it immediately. It was going overseas. Somebody spoofed him. And this was, you know, a young family in their, you know, mid-30s. We're building a house, but we can do that for anyone.
Thank you, Kevin. I have some friends that their business accounts were hacked. Who can they call?
IC3, send it immediately. IC3.gov, send it in. That's the business email compromise I was referring to. And we'll track it. We look into all business email compromises. Oftentimes there's a case to be made there, even if it does go overseas, because those are a little bit different. We can track all the internet highway usage of where it went, how it went. Those are more sophisticated, and so IC3.gov.
And if they've already filled out the paperwork and have heard nothing, what do they do?
From IC3?
It doesn't clarify. It just says they've already filled it. Yes.
So
From IC3.
if this is the case, call our office. Say I'd like to speak with the duty agent.
Okay.
We have a duty agent that's on every single day. I take rotation as well. It's what we're required to do. And you take all calls for our division for a 24-hour period. And we're mandated, especially more so with recent events with Congress, of nothing gets thrown in the trash can. We can't do everything about everything, but it does get logged and reported.
And I think you already answered the last one, which was if there's a case regarding romance fraud overseas, would refer to the FBI or police department.
Both. The police, we get calls regularly as a duty agent. Specifically, I get calls regularly from lieutenants, chiefs of police. Hey, I don't know what to do. We're overwhelmed, and we've got to do the patrols. Like, can you guys take this from us? At least do something.
Any information on how artificial intelligence, GPT, is affecting this space?
Yes. So before AI is really taken off, and it's the buzzword now, but I will say that the phone calls from the computer and voiceover is what the romance scams, it's their number one go-to. Frankly, it's never a woman. It's always a man. It's always an accent, but you can put it through the computer and it sounds like a woman, and it sounds like a normal woman. If you get somebody on the phone that's actually calling you and they have an accent, and unless you know somebody with an accent, just hang the phone up. That's the best advice, and block the phone number. But the AI, artificial intelligence, they have systems set up in place where it's just spooling through phone calls and emails, and who's responding. It's not going to somebody's phone in another country or another state. It's going into something that's triggered in their computer system. They're writing these algorithms that aren't very complicated to track who they've called, who they've reached out to, who's responded. And so it's certainly taking over the space, but it's been doing that for a while.
All right, we got two more, and then we'll wrap up after these two, so we have time for our last presenter. Rob, can you post the resource slide? Because somebody's asking for the best phone number and contact information. So if you could post his last resource slide, I think that would cover that. And then we'll see if you can answer the last two questions, Kevin. Can you confirm if the Utah elder financial abuse increased significantly in the past year, and if so, why?
Yes, it has. And that report shows it from 2022. Now, obviously, we're somewhat into 2023, about halfway through, but it did. As an agent speaking on behalf of the FBI, and also, deducting from doing what I've been doing for almost 15 years, the pandemic has something to do with it. The isolation. You've seen certain industries skyrocket just that weren't, because the need for connection in a different way. So it has, but I think those are parallel to the things that have affected all of us, and are not specific to the elders in this regard. Again, the same things that have caused other things that we're still, even the outdoor community, if you guys have tracked that, what the bike I'll take bikes. What the bike industry has done since COVID is just, it's ridiculous. And because people were needing to get outside and people were needing to connect. That is just the same thing that was preyed upon. I appreciate that from Janet. Says, do you have St. Luke's email? Certainly not a saint, but it's increased significantly. So those are the resources. You can, that's my desk. You can call me. I'm a full-time case agent. I put that just because they asked for a bio. I run with the SWAT team. We do quite a bit of work, and that's my other hat I wear. But I'm a full-time case agent, and I've been doing this. I love doing this because, to me, regardless of where it fits on the scale of the FBI, preying upon the vulnerabilities of my neighbors and you and me is detrimental to the integrity of our communities, our culture, our society, and our foundation. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So,
Thank you, Kevin.
yep, that's what I got, guys. I haven't met any of you, but I really appreciate this opportunity. I mean that genuinely.
Oh, you've met us now virtually.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
excellent, great message. And again, we'll do some follow-up on, not everybody's nuanced question may have been answered, but I think you covered a lot of great material on that. So thank you for that very much, Kevin. Our final presentation, I want to introduce Patrick Crumbly. Patrick is an empowering community leader with extensive expertise in health and well-being. His dedication to community health and wellness is evident from his extensive experience in program development with a breadth of community partners. Crumbly has led wellness programs from the Huntsman Cancer Institute, University of Minnesota, Utah State University, the Association for Utah Community Health, in addition to developing a national health and well-being program for men with prostate cancer. Patrick.
Thank you, Rob. So first and foremost, I wanted to start off by just thanking all the other presenters that have come before me and the great work that they're doing. It's really couldn't be here without them and the work that they're doing behind the scenes to help everybody smooth out a lot of the issues that come about. So what I'm going to be talking on today is a little bit slightly off of topic a little bit, but it does actually integrate into what we're talking about with avoiding financial exploitation. So a lot of the things that happen in the balance of health and wellness, it has a tie-in, and staying connected with a lot of other people around us is a very important piece of that puzzle. So things that we're going to talk about today is the 8 pillars of wellness. And for me, these things are, it's not just me, but it's also some of the national organizations over health and wellness, physical wellness, intellectual wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual, environmental, financial, and occupational and social. So please go ahead to the next slide. So in these 8 dimensions, they all overlap and they all intertwine together. And as we go through these things, I'll kind of tie back in a little bit more some of those pieces of the puzzle, how they can help us avoid financial exploitation and how those other pieces can help us enjoy our lives a little bit more and just have fun along the way as we keep moving through this journey we have of life. So you go to the next one, please, Rob. First off, we're going to start off with physical wellness. So physical wellness, a lot of people think of just, I have to go exercise. And some of us as kids, we went to PE and exercise was sometimes viewed as a punishment. And exercise doesn't have to be a punishment. It can be something we enjoy doing. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to fit into this type of clothing or these pants or I have to look a certain way. Exercise and activity it's a fun way to get out and enjoy the people that you enjoy and doing the things you enjoy. So some of the big pieces of that puzzle is the take-home message that I want to get home here is the goal of physical activity. And I want to define that more as physical activity instead of just exercise. But that's gardening, that's running errands, carrying things, doing some housework. So you want to get in 30 minutes of exercise per day, 3 to 5 days a week. So that gives you a little bit of leeway. And if you're getting back into exercise, you're working on improving your function, those can be broken down into smaller chunks or smaller bouts of time. So if you do 3 10-minute sessions of exercise and activity, or whether that be, carrying your chairs to your grandkids' soccer games, or playing around with grandkids, or going for a small hike or walk or gardening. Those things are part of your exercise and your activity. So that's a great way to balance out your physical wellness. And if we can do that in a social setting, that helps us move into a bigger realm, makes exercise and activity a lot more enjoyable. To go to the next one, please, Rob. The next, we're actually going to bump into intellectual wellness. So a lot of times we think about it, our brains are kind of like a muscle. If you don't use it, it goes backwards. It doesn't stay the same all the time. So things we can do to stimulate our mental growth is really learning new games, getting out, reading good books. I love reading novels. And when I was a kid, I used to sit on my hammock and read books until it was dark outside, and then pull out the flashlight and do that. And that laid a good foundation for me as I move forward to be able to learn a lot of things and reading research articles. But now, as I'm in this phase of my life and my career, I actually enjoy learning new games and doing things with other people, learning new strategy games. So those are ways that we can actually improve our intellectual wellness and have the enjoyment of the company of the people around us that we enjoy. So if you go to the next one, please, Rob. So in the next area, we're going to talk about our emotional wellness and our emotional well-being. So this is a way we can actually sit back and actually understand our emotions, be self-aware, help us cope with stress, and maintain healthy relationships. So a lot of times, like if you get a little bit anxious, if you're feeling like stressed about something that's going on, one of the best tips that I've found, here's a few of them, and I'm going to walk through them a little bit more, spend a little more time here. First of all, take a drink of water, drink a glass of water. What that does is it helps dilute the cortisol within our system, and it helps us feel a little bit calmer. One of the other great quick tips is to sit back and look up at the ceiling, count the ceiling tiles. It helps shift our brain and our body's focus away from whatever is creating that fight or flight, and helps us move back and center into ourselves and be more present and in the moment. One of my favorite things that I like to do is it's grounding exercises. We're going to actually walk through this one really quickly. I'm not going to do the full thing, but what I like to do is, and I'm going to ask you guys all to do this as well. So everybody, if you're hearing me, please do this along with me. So I want you to close your eyes and take your fingertips and place them just below your navel. Okay, so I'm going to have you breathe in through your nose. You should feel your belly go out, and breathe out through your mouth. And just focus on that. So in through the nose and out through the mouth. And you should feel your belly rise as you breathe in and go in as you breathe out. So keeping your eyes closed, go ahead and do that. So I like to tell my kids that you're going to smell the birthday cake and then blow out the candles. So just take a minute and focus on your breathing. It's a great way to recenter yourself and get your system back into a good, thoughtful process. So for the next minute, you'd take the time, keep your eyes closed for me. Take a little bit of time and focus on what you see. Even though your eyes are closed, I know, take a little bit of time to just focus on what you see in the senses of sight. And you would typically do that for about a minute roughly. And as you get those thoughts coming into your mind and you start shifting your focus on other things, and I don't want to do this, or I have this other thing to do, I'll gently allow it to pass through and slide back into focusing on just what you see. And next, we're going to take a moment to focus on what you smell. So as we're breathing in and out, same deep breaths that we were doing, just focus on what you smell. And then the next step here is to focus on what you taste and what's in your mouth and what you taste in your mouth. So those senses, we're really grounding back into those senses of that we have. And then you're going to focus a little bit more on what you hear. And hopefully you're not hearing me just breathing heavy over here. I want you to focus on you and your breathing and what you're hearing, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So focus on what you're hearing. And next, just take a moment and focus on what you feel. Focus your attention and your awareness on your skin sensations, where you're seated, what's going on in your body. Focus on what you feel. Focus all of your attention and awareness on that. So as we walk through those, you guys can open your eyes and relax a little bit. So as we walk through those, what happens is a lot of times we can take that time to focus on our breathing. And we typically do that for about a minute each. And it's a great way if you're feeling stressed, anxious, or anything's going on. If you have something that's, like we talked about the things earlier, something that's with finances that's coming up and you want to do something and it seems out of the ordinary. So take a moment to just ground yourself and feel yourself and be present in the moment. And that allows you to shift your brain back into a thoughtful process so you can cognitively think through everything and have the foresight and the vision to work through those processes. So that's some of the best ways that I can talk about emotional wellness. Those are a few great take-home tips that I use on the regular that can help us really focus back into ourselves. And if you'll go ahead to the next slide, please, Rob. And then the next slide, we focus on spiritual wellness and spiritual well-being. And this gives us a sense of purpose, something greater than ourselves. We feel a greater connection to whatever your spiritual background is. And the best ways to do that is really just kind of reaching out and staying connected with your spiritual community. Whatever religion or background you come from, whatever your religious practices, just keep maintaining those and reach out and develop those connections within that community. Another great way to help with your spiritual wellness is to volunteer. So take a little bit of time and volunteer in the community, reach out to help other people. And those things are great ways to help supplement your spiritual wellness. And taking the time to meditate. So meditation is a little bit of taking those grounding exercises that we just did and taking that to a different level. So staying in that space a little bit longer, breathing a little bit deeper and going into those places. And whatever religious background you come from, you can do these types of things. And being present in the moment is taught in pretty much almost most religions across the board. Taking the time to connect to nature, connect to God is actually a great way to calm your nervous system and to bring you back to a present moment too. Okay, we'll go to the next one, please, Rob. And the next one is environmental wellness. So some of our focus here is we can focus on our environment and focus on our relationships with our surroundings, the things that are around us. Some people, I really like actually mowing my grass, mowing in my yard. I love the smells that it brings in. I spend a lot of time boating and fishing up in Alaska, so I love the smell of the fresh water. That to me is calming. So being aware of our environment and the things around us, promoting and practicing sustainable practices, appreciating nature, getting out and touching and feeling can help with grounding as well. So practicing grounding exercises out in nature is a great way to bring yourself back into contact with yourself and nature and feel more grounded. So a few key take homes here is organizing your living space and just where you live and just making sure things are tidy and picked up and cleaned can help you feel a little bit more calm. Spend time in the outdoors and nature, and also helping in a community garden. So taking the time to connect with you in the community and taking the time with the community garden, whether it's your community garden or whether you're gardening at home, helping teach other people about gardening and the things that you have to benefit others. If you'll go to the next one, please, Rob. And the next area, we talked a lot about financial exploitation today. So big thing here is financial wellness. So financial wellness, it really comes down to making informed decisions about our financial resources. So taking the time to be really aware of what our financial resources are. First thing to do is get somebody and talk to a trusted financial planner. Find somebody you trust, find somebody within your family that can help you, and get connected to somebody that can really help you guide your financial future. And this can help you when you have a resource. If somebody is, connecting with you, trying to run some sort of scam or something of that nature, then you can have somebody to actually talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm going on. I'm thinking about doing this. Is it a good idea? That way you can bounce those ideas off of somebody else and say, does that seem like rational? Is that reasonable? Is this something that seems like it's not the right thing to dial into and put my money into? So also setting a budget and being aware of where your finances are, and then protecting what you have and being aware of those resources. If you'll go to the next one, please, Rob. The next area is occupational wellness. So, and as different stages in our life, occupational wellness can mean a lot of different things. So whether we're retired, whether we're in the middle of our career, beginning different pieces, the big thing behind that is find something that you are passionate about that brings purpose to you. that brings happiness and joy to yourself. So that's where that occupational wellness can have that big foundation, and finding opportunities for growth and where in an environment that you feel appreciated as well. So find a sense of purpose in what you do, engaging in work that you find interesting and motivating, something that you're passionate about, that you want to learn about anyways, and maintaining a good work-life balance as well. You'll consider the next one, please, Rob. And the next one, this is the kind of the area I want to spend a little bit more time, but I want to focus on social wellness. So social wellness is actually building and emphasizing, maintaining those healthy relationships with others. Kevin did talk a little bit too about building that circle of trust and connecting with people around you, but it's also that social wellness. We don't want to avoid a little bit of that feeling of isolation, that loneliness. So making sure we're connected. So if we're feeling isolated and lonely, reaching out to other people and connecting with them, but also from our standpoint, reaching out to other people to make sure that they're not feeling isolated or lonely, and be able to help them pull out of that place that they may be feeling. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Rob. So one of the big components that actually is really important right now, the Surgeon General just released this year, just pretty recently, it's the Surgeon General's report on loneliness and isolation. So our epidemic that we just came out of, we had a lot of social isolation, social distancing. It was a big thing. And we heard from, there's a big rise in financial exploitation and things like that come from people feeling isolated. The need to connect with other people is being exploited. And so those are some of the pieces that we need to really work to reach out to others. So social wellness is a big component for the Surgeon General. It's a major epidemic, and it's actually something that can affect your health in a lot of different aspects of your health. So making sure we're staying socially connected is a really good resource. And there's some great resources here that you can actually tap into to develop a little bit more of the social wellness and understand how isolation and loneliness can have negative side effects. So in the past, it used to be smoking and things like that. So this, if you can think of it in that nature, this is taking as big of an emphasis on your personal health, that isolation and loneliness, as smoking was in the past. So that's a really big important thing to avoid that loneliness and isolation. Really reach out and connect with other people, even if that is a little bit of an effort for you. But also make sure you reach out to other people and make sure they're not feeling isolated or lonely. Last slide, please, Rob.
That's the last one, my friend.
Okay. Oh, great. Perfect. Well, the last one, the take homes on that one is really just make sure you stay connected with other people and really connect and just reach out. But and the nice thing about all that is you can stay connected with through all those other different components of health and wellness and well-being, whether it's activity, whether it's games, whether it's the intellectual wellness. There's so many pieces of that puzzle that can tie together with the social wellness and your social well-being. And so pulling all those things together, we can actually make ourselves feel better. We can stay connected. We can build that circle of trust around us. And we can really reach out to help other people if they're feeling depressed or lonely and isolated. We can help guide them through to a better, safer place. And as if we are in a caregiver role, make sure you're taking care of yourself while you're taking care of others. So, and connect with people of all different ages and backgrounds. So some of the pieces that we can do is intellectual wellness, getting to know somebody from a different culture than you're used to, getting to know somebody from a different age category, getting to hear the stories and the different experiences that they've had can help build that connectedness and help you grow in your own intellectual capacity and balance out your wellness as well. So there's just a few tips on health and wellness and pieces of the puzzle that from my perspective. So just really just take a little bit of time and ground yourself and find the things that you benefit you and stay connected with the people around you. So that's what I have today.
It's a good note to end on, Patrick.
Thank you.
We have permission to share your slides. Is that correct?
Please, yes.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank again everybody for attending today. Time well spent. I'm just going to ask Tracy if she has any last comments to share with the group.
I don't. Just want to thank you for your attendance and your support, and wear purple today in support of the day and every day. Let's remember to support our communities and report if we suspect.
We'll get the assets posted shortly and encourage everybody to take the survey as they exit. And again, wish you all the very best. Thank you for your time and thank you to all our great presenters. Have a great day.